Welcome to Meet My Friends. Daddy Porter, Meet My Friends. I'm here with my friend, Doug. How you doing, buddy?
How are you doing, man? And thank you for including me as one of your friends. I really appreciate that.
You are. I've been trying to get you on the show just by yourself, but we'll talk about that another time. But this is a show different than our Brothers and Booze show. This is a show where I like to bring on friends that I meet at these wonderful events that I go to, or personal friends. Mostly it's in the beer industry, but we have some guests coming up here that aren't just going to be in the beer industry. So that's going to be fun. But this is a showcase for me to show all the people I meet, their side gigs, what they're doing. I meet so many fascinating people at these events. You already know about that too. I mean, I go to beer bloggers, Fresh Fest. When I go to these things, I meet these people and I'm like blown away by just their knowledge and their energy and their spunk. I mean, we've had many guests on that I've met before. So I'm just really excited about today. And there goes something over there. So
well, I'm going to tell you, the guy we're having on today, the bona fides for him are impressive. I'm really looking forward to this.
Right. And I even had to go to my own little screen here to read his bio. So Owen is the founder of Brewtopia. He is a columnist for the Southern Brew News. He's a beer Connoisseur magazine.
Wow.
He's a lecturer at Knoxville Brewing and Distilling Center. He's the founder and director of, this is what I want to talk about the most, Alaska Cask Ale Festival tasting. Oh, I love Cask Ale, man. He's also I believe he's the director and the founder of Classic City Brew Fest also. He's a BJCP National Beer Judge, and he's a Great American Festival Beer Judge.
How much more can you add? Great. Let's bring him in, man. Let's do
it. Yes. So without further ado, here's my friend Owen Ogletree. What's up, Owen?
Hey guys, how are you?
Good, man.
Having a great afternoon. At the time of this stream, it is National Beer Day, and we didn't even plan this. I'm just gonna say I planned it, and then I can look good. But yeah, I planned it. Right.
Somewhere in the back of your mind, you knew this was happening, and you planned this.
I knew it was happening. Owen, what's in your glass?
Oh, I'm drinking a really nice session IPA from Highland Brewing Company in Asheville called Daycation. And I'm drinking it out of my great British Beer Festival glass from 2015.
So Owen, I read your bio to everybody who was here for that. Obviously, you are what's the word I'm looking for, Doug? Well accomplished or seasoned or
religious.
So Owen, can we start before we get to all the stuff you're doing now? Can we start to where did you find your love of beer? When was this? How did that all evolve? And we'll start there.
Well, I was teaching AP biology at a local high school. Started in 1985, and every summer I've just loved going to Europe. So every summer I would head over to Europe and go to England and Belgium and France and Germany, all the standard spots. And at night, after touring all day and going to museums and hiking all day, I would go into pubs in these different countries and just started drinking the beer and realizing, this is crazy. Why is the beer so different in Belgium than it is in Germany? I mean, in Belgium, it's all fruity and got these crazy flavors, really strong. And in Germany, it's real clean and comes in these giant mugs. And when you go to England, it's this odd habit of pumping the beer into the glass from the cellar in the pub, and the beer was soft and wasn't very carbonated. It was really good. And I was like, why? And so I started reading and researching and got all of Michael Jackson, the Beer Hunters books, read those cover to cover, got his video series that was on Discovery Channel, The Beer Hunter. This is not the singer Michael Jackson. This is the beer writer. And just kind of got fascinated, started homebrewing beer, opened my own homebrew shop in Athens, Georgia in 1995. So I would teach all day and then go run this beer homebrew shop in the evenings. And went to the Great American Beer Festival, and that blew me away. And we decided, my friend and I, who own the homebrew shop, hey, we can do a beer festival like this in Athens. How hard is it going to be? We had no idea how hard this was going to be. A beer festival is a massive undertaking. And after the first year, we said, nope, never again. And then we had 180 people come up and go, no, you can't stop. It was so much fun. So it's been going for 25 years.
Right. Well before craft was craft. You know?
Yeah. We had to get out there and get everything we could. We had Pete's Wicked Ale. We had Samuel Adams. We had all the imports, Sierra Nevada, and of course we had Michelob and all these things. So because it was hard to get 100 craft beers together in 1995, 96.
Yeah. Wow. So so it sounds like the Beer Fest preceded the beer tours.
Yes, we've been doing the beer festival. This would have been 25 years last Sunday, but of course COVID-19 had a different plan for that, and so we're going to try and put it off until Saturday, August 29th in Athens, Georgia, and keeping our fingers crossed that it's still going to take place, because it's a fantastic event and we want to hit that 25 year mark.
Yeah. Is it the Atlanta one or is it Classic City?
I do the Atlanta Cask Ale Festival. That's in January. We got that in the books this year, and it was fantastic. And then Classic City Brew Fest is the one that's been going for 25 years, and that's in Athens, Georgia, in April. Except for this year.
Yeah.
Right.
This is it,
derailed with that. So, so beer tours. Greg's wants to hit on that. I know. I'm really wildly interested in your stuff that you've explored over in Europe. But Greg, what about the beer tour stuff? What do you want to ask there?
Well, also around 95, 96, when I had the homebrew shop with my friend, we couldn't get high gravity beer in Georgia. I mean, it was the limit was 6%, which was extremely frustrating to us because we were seeking out these Belgian beers and barley wines, and it was a no-go in Georgia. So we started running beer tours of New Orleans, which is the closest place to get high gravity beer back in the mid 90s. And, you know, New Orleans doesn't have any alcohol laws. You can do whatever you want. So, so we would load up a 15 passenger van with 14 people and luggage and go to New Orleans for 4 or 5 days and come back with the whole floor of the van just packed with cases of high gravity beer, which was fantastic. And from those days of doing that and taking people around Atlanta, we rented a limo one time and did an Atlanta brew pub tour back in the early 2000s. People started asking me if I would take them to Europe, because I've been all over Europe drinking beer, and I love Europe. I love classic beer styles. I love the history of beer. And I said, well, we'll see what happens. And I started taking some people. It was mainly the Terrapin employees about 11, 12 years ago who got this started. We want to go to Belgium, Owen, take us to Belgium. And then word got out and people were like, well, we want to go. We want to do this. And so I did another Belgian tour, and then England, and then Germany, Czech Republic, Austria, Italy, Spain, France, South Africa. And next February, we're going to New Zealand, the North Island of New Zealand.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's already sold out.
Yeah. I only have time to do about 3 of these a year. I want to plan them really well, but they sell out so fast, which is a good thing.
And how many people go?
In France in February, we barely got under the Corona deadline on that, but we made it with no problem. But in France in February, we had 39 people, which is the biggest I've ever done. Normally, I like to keep it to 30, 28, 30. But we did okay with 39 folks. It wasn't that bad.
So business was pretty. Let me jump in here real quick, Doug. But business is pretty decent before coming in as far as the tours go.
Oh yeah. I've really enjoyed doing that. It's been a new passion of mine. I in another life I would have been a travel agent, because I love finding good deals and making friends in Europe and figuring out where to go and what backstage things to do, that people don't normally know about. So it's been a great fun experience doing these European trips. And I have people all the time who go one time and they say, well, I'm going to go on every single one you'll let me go on because it's affordable and we go to some really cool places and I know everybody over there. So it works out very well.
So to the point with the tours, what is some place you went that you were surprised at either like the variety or the quality of the beer? Like you mentioned some place like South Africa is not a place I would think to go drink beer, but
yeah. Well, my wife and I always do a scouting run. You know, we go into an area before we even plan a trip and go, is this going to be worth it or not? And get a little plan together. And so we went to South Africa and we were pretty impressed with the beer, the craft beer that was happening there and the craft beer scene, especially around Cape Town. So a couple of years later, we started doing more research and realized, wow, it's really exploded now. We met a friend of ours, Lucy Korn, down there, who's a beer blogger in Cape Town, and she told us about all these new places. So that made up the mind to go to South Africa. We had to do that, and it was such an amazing trip. People had a great time. People were nice. The beer was fantastic. Scenery's gorgeous. We did a wildlife tour one morning. I always have to try to do non-beer things in the morning because, you know, you can't drink beer all day, even though some people want to.
I can't, but yeah, go on.
So Belgium tours. There's a lot of different ways you can go with that because there's, I mean, quite a few breweries over there. So how do you choose? You do like, here's a Trappist tour. Here's, you know, how do you figure that out?
How does that look? Yeah. Well,
we try to rotate around different areas of Belgium every time we go. So one time we'll go over to the east, and there aren't quite as many breweries in the east of Belgium, but there are a few that are nice, like Aschuf and Orval. And then we can pop over across the border into Germany, and just right across the borders, you have Dusseldorf and Köln, Germany, which Dusseldorf is famous for the alt beer and Köln is famous for the Kolsch. And then another trip, we might say, hey, let's stick to the west side, so we can go to Flanders and a lot of Trappist monastery breweries like Westmalle and Westvleteren. Westvleteren is always super popular because, you know, you can't just go to a package store and buy Westvleteren because the monks want to keep it local and they want to keep it right there. So normally at Westvleteren, which is sometimes with many people considered the best beer in the world, they'll go online and say, tomorrow we'll have cases of Westvleteren 12 at the drive-up window at the monastery. And you got to get there early because there are 200 cars in line down this dirt road, and you might get 3/4 of the way toward the monk's window, and he'll come out with his little robe on going, sold out. And I've seen some really upset people. But the great thing is you go across the street from Westvleteren, and they have a cafe there called In de Verde, and you can buy little sandwiches with their cheese and get all the beers at the cafe.
I wonder if that sounds a little bit more like you're speaking, Greg, with the small tastes, kind of small pours thing.
Right.
Yeah, I'll take a case of 12 any day. Go.
I have a 7-foot-tall friend who went with us one time, and he said, I'm going to have 12 Westvleteren 12s. And they're about 11% alcohol. And he got about 7 down, but I was proud of him.
Yeah, that's an accomplishment. Like I like drinking heavy stuff, but I drank 11% beers. I don't think I'd be able to walk.
Well, he's had lots of practice, and he's a big guy.
So Owen here, I see I'm seeing here New Zealand, and I'm seeing London next year. Do you know, where are you thinking about the third trip in 2021?
Don't know yet. You know, we're supposed to go to Italy in October, but I don't know. Italy's been hit hard, which might mean the virus would have run its course in Italy and we'll be okay. But the trouble is, it takes me months to plan these things. And I don't want to get started planning Italy and buying hotel rooms and renting a bus and so forth until I know that we're going to be okay. And, you know, everyone's safety's the priority here. I mean, beer is great, but I don't want people getting sick and ill, and
yes, sir.
I don't want to have any of my friends get a life-threatening disease. So So Italy may or may not happen. That's still far enough out. I was supposed to take 20 brewers from New York to Oktoberfest in Munich in September. And that's an easy call. If they're going to do Oktoberfest, we'll go. And if it gets canceled, we won't. So everyone on that trip has already told me that if Oktoberfest gets canceled, they'd be happy just moving it to 2021. So that would work just fine. So we got New Zealand. New Zealand in February should come off without a hitch, I hope. And I'm going to do the Great British Beer Festival in London in August.
Yeah.
And then I don't know about October. Maybe another Oktoberfest trip, because I'm limited to 20 people on that because I have to rent tables, and you can only rent at the festival tables of 10, and you're limited to 2. So. So I'm limited to 20 there. So I might do that again next year, unless this trip gets put off till next year.
Well, I know.
And a good thing about the Oktoberfest trip is if you can look at the picture here that's my friend Otto, who works at Eyinger Brewery just south of Munich. So we don't just go to Oktoberfest on the Oktoberfest trip. We go to Bamberg, spend a couple of days in Bamberg to drink the gorgeous smoked beer. And then we come down to Eying, which is south of Munich, and we get a VIP tour there with Otto, and he takes us around and gives us beer out of the lines, out of the tanks, and it is just so incredibly good.
Doug,
smoked beers.
Right.
Oh, you're killing me, man. I love it.
Doug, you like smoked beer from Bamberg?
Oh, I do. Yeah, Greg, I had the smoked porters, like specifically. I haven't had a whole lot of other smoked beers, but man, I want to try them.
Right. First time I went to Bamberg and met my friend Matthias, who owns Schlenkeller Brewery, the greatest smoked beer brewery in the world. He kind of looked at me weird and didn't know I'd tried these beers before, and put a half liter in front of me, and I took a big gulp and made a face like I meant the face to be, oh my God, this is so good. And he took it as, oh, be patient. You have to have at least 5 or 6 liters before you'll really begin to like this beer. I'm like, no, I like it right now. This is fantastic.
I was gonna say, Owen, you sold a ticket with that smoked beer story.
Oh yeah.
Over there with Doug.
It's great. Some people tell me they don't like smoked beer, but once you go and have it fresh right there in these taverns that are 600, 700 years old,
oh man,
you just immediately fall in love with it. It is so good.
Well, Owen, and you're an expert beer traveler, so sometimes people had the wrong smoked beer. You know what I'm saying? Like, because some of these smoked beers can be very assertive.
Yeah, true. And especially a lot of brew pub smoked beers I've had that have been stringent and harsh and taste like an ashtray. And they're not using the smooth, light beechwood smoke. They're using, hickory smoke or pecan wood or something, which doesn't quite translate as well. So you got to be careful with your smoked beer. I've had lots of good ones and I've had lots of not so good ones.
Yeah, there's what did I have? Greg, the one in the show, I had a smoked porter, and I actually thought that was better than the Alaskan smoked porter, which a lot of people but I can't even remember who it was now.
Wow.
I believe that was Carbon 4.
It was Carbon 4 out of Madison. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
It's a very fantastic beer.
It is.
Right.
It's all what you talked about, Owen. It's not assertive. It's just got that nice smoothness to it that just.
We're going to get Owen one of those for sure.
Yeah.
I've never tried it. I'd love to try it.
Owen's had Fantasy Factory, though, I believe. I think I gave Owen Fantasy Factory up in Montana. I could be wrong. I know I gave him a Spotted Cow.
Yeah, I've had that many times. Okay. It's great.
Okay. So, anybody who is looking for, if anything that Owen just told you about his tours, there is the link right there. And you guys can hit me up. Anybody hit me up in my DMs or whatever. I can hook you up with Owen at any point. Owen's been quote pressuring me, not pressuring me, but like saying, hey, you got to come on for at least 2 years. So I am way overdue to go to these tours. And obviously I don't know. I'm really going to be popping for 2021. So that's why I was all up in you about what we're doing on 2021, because I'm really going to be wanting to get out here for sure.
So, you and everybody else.
Oh man. So I really want to transition a little bit to your beer fest. And you said you started I'm sorry, you started the Classic City Brew Fest 25 years ago, or was it
right?
Atlanta Cask Ale? When did the Atlanta Cask Ale come in?
That was 16 years ago. So next year will be number 17. And that came from my love of going to England and learning about what cask ale is. And if you don't know what cask ale is,
please tell everybody.
Normally in England they'll put 10 gallons of beer that's not quite finished yet in a cask with a little bit of residual sugar and some residual yeast. And inside the cask, the yeast will eat that last remaining bit of sugar in the seal cask. And of course, when yeast eats sugar, it poops out lots of carbon dioxide. And in a seal cask, it has nowhere to go, so it dissolves in the beer. And then they tap it and they pull it to the pub with the little hand pull, because they're not putting extra pressure on the beer like we do with kegged beer in the States, because a lot of that artificial carbon dioxide can dissolve in the beer. So with a cask ale, ideally you get a nice smooth sparkle, soft carbonation where it's not filling your mouth full of foam, and you really taste the malt and the hops and the fermentation character. You're not tasting carbonic acid from all that artificial carbon dioxide. So I really wanted to just branch out and do a cask ale festival in Atlanta. And the first year, I bought used cask, and had them shipped over from England, and a third of them came with sour beer in them. So I had to clean all that out, and I took all these around and just gave them to breweries in Atlanta, saying, hey, if I'm going to give you this cask, you're going to fill it for me, and we're going to have this free festival. And all I did was put up a big jar for the Atlanta Humane Society. If you show up, there's no charge for this. I really couldn't figure out how to charge for it without going to jail. But, I just encourage people to come and drink the beer and put some money in the Humane Society jar. And we had like 12 beers that first year, and now we have almost 60 cask ales.
Wow.
From all over the Southeast and the country, in Georgia, and a couple from England every once in a while. And it's just so much fun. I'm trying to get Greg to come and judge with us one year. He's got to get down to Atlanta.
I do.
Right.
You're right.
Just don't try to drive around Atlanta. That's all. Oh no! Right.
Owen's right.
Yes, to drive in.
Owen's correct. But so Owen, so 16 years has been going. When I had my first couple cask ales, it really changed everything I think about beer, and it's just really, for me, I don't know. It's just a real beer experience. We have the great taste of the Midwest up here. I don't know if you've ever been, but you need to come up one of these years. But it's always it's the second week of August, and that's usually when Beer Now is, and that's when Fresh Fest is. It's a pretty big beer weekend. Long story short, they have a cask ale tent only. And when you walk, it's one of the tents you see when you walk in. And I literally spend like 2 hours, an hour and a half there before I even get to the rest of the festival, tasting all those fantastic one-off beers that a lot of the breweries do. Surly has their one of my favorite beers is Todd the Axeman, and then they just start doing all kinds of crazy stuff with it, and you can only get that there. Is that the kind of experience I can expect at your fest?
Yeah, the Atlanta Cask Ale tasting. Every beer is different because every brewer adds a little bit of dry hops that you're not going to get in the regular beer, or they put in some wood chips, or I hate to say it, but candy bars sometimes, and chocolate donuts, and breakfast cereal, and fruit. And,
well, what kind of shrooms? That could be problematic.
I'm not a fan of that sort of cask, but sometimes it works pretty well. And all the casks have a unique name, and they're all on Untappd, so people can come and try them and untap all these different cask ales that you can find nowhere else. And that's the fun of that little 10-gallon Firkin cask, is that you can do whatever you want. You can put all kinds of cool things in there to enhance the beer, or sometimes turn it into a whole new different beer. But you got to be careful with adding sugar and candy and fruit, because if you put too much sugar in there, of course, the yeast doesn't know that it's too much sugar. They just keep on eating and keep on pumping out carbon dioxide. So we have had some casks that are sort of explosive at times. But I've sort of trained everybody to keep that in check, so that the cask just has a nice nice, beautiful, soft carbonation.
And I can only imagine the amount of people that you've touched or have changed their views on cask ale. Because again, I think it's an experience once you try it as a beer drinker. Not that you'll never go back, but it's something that you always look for, and it's something that I really like as a perk, especially when you go into a brew pub or a really good beer bar, and they have I can see the pump before I even like sit down. Sometimes I go in and look for the pump, Owen. So I want to see the pump. Because I know you at least have one on there, and then again, that's always something innovative, fresh, new. The brewer experimenting. It's never just like their beer in a, I mean, even if it's just the same beer in a cask, it's just a different experience. Period.
Right. Can people see the comments here that are in the corner?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, this is my friend from California, Ron Watt, and he's known as Firkin Ron because he loves cask beer, and he's written a lot about cask beer and been to England many times. So,
yeah, Firkin Ron is one I would love to have on the show. Firkin Ron.
Ron, did you hear that? You've got to be on this show. You would love it.
Let's go. Him and I had an experience up at Matt Brewing in Montana last year, which was, I don't know if were you ever there? That was fantastic. I love Matt Brewing. Oh man, I can't say enough about that place.
Yeah, it was great. It was fantastic.
Ron loves the festival, and you said he judged there.
Yeah, he's judged the Atlanta Cask Ale tasting twice for us, I think, maybe 3 times. But he loves it. He's going to come back again next year, I hope.
I don't know if you saw this before you were talking, but here's another comment.
Oh yeah, that's one of my best friends, Mark Hall. Yeah, when I first opened the homebrew shop, he was outside the door with his nose pressed against the window before we opened. And Mark ran in, and Mark's got a great personality. He was like buying everything, going, "Oh, I've been waiting for this for so long to have our homebrew shop in Athens." And we framed his dollar and put it on the wall, and it was there for the whole 3 years we had the shop. And now he helps me run all the festivals and goes with me to Europe and scopes things out. And running that homebrew shop was the best thing I ever did. I didn't make any money off of it, but I've got all these friends and all these brewers that I'm still best friends with for 30 years. And it's just been so much fun knowing these people. And I never would have known these people without that homebrew shop.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know what you're doing in your tours, and I don't really care, but maybe the homebrew was the setup for the tours and
right.
You know what I mean? You didn't know that at the time, but looking back, it's easy to say.
Yeah.
And this is Mary Fiorello. She's a beer blogger in Atlanta. She's superb. She knows her stuff. Comes on all of my trips.
Oh,
and,
hi, Mary. How you doing? I'll look her up. Great.
Yeah.
So
I think she goes by the Hops Diva, I believe.
Hops Diva. What's up, Doug?
So you were talking about cask ales because of the festival. There's actually, where I live in upstate New York. There's actually one place that's called Seneca Lakes Brewing that their specialty is cask ales up here. And I've had some of their stuff, and it's really good, really good. And it's interesting because they do like you said, it's the one time I was at a beer festival at Omegang, and they came and they had just started. So they didn't really have like a spot in the tent or anything, but they brought like these barrels that were just 5-gallon barrels, and just everything they had was excellent. And it was just so much different than all the other stuff, because the beer festival at Omegang was Belgium comes to Cooperstown. So it was all Belgian. Well, it wasn't all Belgian beers, but that was kind of their focus. But I'm going to tell you, that was, like Greg said, when you taste that, and it's just so different because Americanized beer is different.
Right.
They have such a different sense of how to make it. And like hearing you talk about going to France and Spain, and like how everybody has all these different sort of approaches to it. It's something that I'd love to explore, but 4 kids has a way of draining your wallet a bit on that. So,
I can imagine. Yeah. And anybody can do draft beer, and the draft beer is a great thing. But you sanitize a keg, you force carbonate it with artificial gas, you put it in the keg, you send it out, you put it under the bar, hook up the hose to it. You keep that pressure on there from artificial carbon dioxide gas, and the beer, when you just pop a tap, flows into your glass. And it's good, and it keeps the beer a long time, and it's easy. So that's a good thing. But cask is hard. I mean, you gotta keep it cool. You can't serve it at room temperature. Once you start pulling a pint out of there with gravity or by using the suction, you have to either replace it with a gentle flow of carbon dioxide or just replace it with air. And if you replace it with air, that cask isn't going to last. You got to drink that whole 10 gallons or 5 gallons, depending on the size, within a day or two. But when it's done right, it's so good.
Cask ale is an experience.
Yeah.
Not the
Definitely.
beer isn't, but it's more because, again, like you said, you have to be there at that moment. Whether it's a festival, whether it's at that beer bar that it just opened. I know I'm going to shout out a local brewer, Parch Eagle. I used to work for them, disclaimer, but they had put their hop bear on at a local place, which I'm on another plug for the Malt House. They put their on there and it just goes, it's gone within hours, if not the next day. I usually call it, is the hop bear still on? No. Or it's great because they even tell you it's a little long in the tooth. It's been here for 3 days. You know what I'm saying? So there's at least that. But even that, again, it evolves a little bit, the whole beer. And cask ale, a little bit of different rapport when you, like you said, when you first pour it, then 2 days in. But I still think you can get a good pour out of a cask ale 2 days. What do you think?
Oh, sure, yeah, especially if it has a higher alcohol volume. In England, a lot of the beers are 4%. And if you're just pulling out a pint and replacing it with a pint of air in the cask, it oxidizes pretty quickly. It's still probably going to be good the next day, but I wouldn't go past a couple of days on a light beer like that. But if it's in 7% old ale or 7% imperial stout, and you're pulling that and replacing it with air, and keeping it cool in the cellar, 50 degrees, 55 degrees, I mean, that beer will go for a week or more. Alcohol content really protects the beer from oxidation.
So that's a hint, Greg. Drink the higher alcohol stuff.
Right.
Doug, of course, that's your line. That is your line. That is Doug's line, of course.
Can I ask one more question, Owen?
Sure.
What is a style that you've had that you haven't had a lot of that you wish you could find more of?
Right now, this day and age, I really miss Bocks. A malty Bock, German Bock, is one of the greatest beers ever invented. The Munich malt character is so good, and they're just so smooth and so elegant and beautiful. And when you get them really strong, of course, you have a Doppelbock, and you can have a Maibock, Springbock, blonde box, and I just love them, and you just cannot find them anymore. No one's doing them anymore because everyone's all about kettle sours and hazy, juicy IPAs and breakfast cereal beer and lactose this and lactose that. And what I've started doing in my quarantine boredom and insanity is every day on Facebook I'm posting this really nice post about a classic beer style that I really want to see come back. And what I'm hoping is by the end of this quarantine, I'm going to have brewers reading that going, okay, I'm going to give that a try. And maybe we can bring some of these classic styles back, because that's where craft beer started in England and Germany and Belgium. And I love all those styles so much. And I just love sharing those with people around the world. And my friends who go to these trips with me to Europe are like, well, I don't really like those beers very much. But by the time the trip is done, they're going, oh my God, this was so much fun. Those Hefeweizens, those wheat beers, I haven't had one of those in years, and it was the best thing I've ever had because it was so fresh in Munich. And it's the experience, and it's the freshness, and it's the people that make these trips really fun. Like, for example, my friend Jim Smith right here, he goes on tons of trips and goes on scouting trips with me. And he's been a big help, and he enjoys them tremendously.
Yeah, I can't say enough about again, when I first met you, I don't know, I met you and I shook your hand and I was like, cool, and I just didn't sometimes when you meet someone you can't really tell anything about them. So then when I went home the first time I met you, I believe it was you weren't in Milwaukee, I don't think, were you, Owen?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it was Milwaukee.
Might
And then
have been Milwaukee, yeah.
I went home from Milwaukee and I Googled you and I was like, I'm pretty sure the next time I saw you, I was like, man, you are like everything that I kind of aspire to be as far as a beer traveler, a writer. Again, the support that you give to the brewers. Again, I see you. I'm friends with you on Facebook, so I see you traveling, and I'm just like, man, Owen. You know what I mean? But it's funny because again, seeing you snapshot 25 years into this or 30 years into it, it's really easy to be like, man, that's where I want to aspire to be like tomorrow. But obviously, you've had decades into this, and from hearing your timeline, you were one of the early supporters of craft beer, especially if you had if you were an owner of a homebrew shop at that critical time where a lot of homebrewers were coming in, and now a lot of these guys are the brewers now. You helped this whole thing, brother.
Well, yeah, it's been fun, but it's been a challenge. And I never would have dreamed that we'd be in this situation we are now, where I used to know every brewer, every brewery, every new beer. I've tried them all, I reviewed them all, and now I can't even keep track of how many breweries we have in Georgia. There's a new one opening every month.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up these days. Whereas I started doing beer tastings for people in 1988. And people had no clue what beer was. They were like, wow, what is this? What is this? Beer can be black and not taste like, Guinness. And they make beer in Belgium, really? And I told people I had a beer website in 94. I started in 94. And half the people would go, what's a website? And how do you do a beer website? And getting people to drink beer like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale was so difficult because they were like, oh, this beer is too hoppy, it's too aggressive, and now everyone's like, oh, it's a good beer, but
Right.
it's nothing, right?
So Owen Daniel Fisher says he missed Box as well, and I wanted to make a comment as far as I remember I see Box more in the spring, like they have a Box Fest around here, but after that they pretty much evaporate.
Right. Which is a shame because it's a great year-round beer. I mean, I'll drink a Bock anytime. I'll drink a Doppelbock anytime. Doppelbocks like Salvatore and Optimator are great with Mexican food because their Mexican food's earthy and sweet, and Bocks are earthy and sweet, and they're great with pizza. You won't think of a Doppelbock with pizza, but oh my God, if you ever get a fresh one, try it, and it's fantastic. It's a wonderful pairing.
I have a Doppelbock sitting in my fridge downstairs that was aged in bourbon barrels with cherries, and I'm a little worried about it. But
that one sounds a little sketchy, but it could be good.
It's from a local brewery, and if they're going to do something that's a little bit out of the box, I'm all for it. I want to see them try stuff. I'm with you. Sometimes it gets a little crazy with. I had one on here the other week that Greg had like coconut and vanilla and chocolate and like coffee, and it was like. It was really good, but it was like everything was just fighting with each other for your taste bud. That was
right. Yeah.
I want to speak a little bit about like because we've talked about this, and actually for the record, this is somewhere where kind of Owen and I disagree, but I do want Owen to talk about what do you think about the whole cereal beer, rattlers, lactose, everything, as an old school beer guy, what is your opinion on this trend as far as craft beer goes and all that?
Well, we do disagree a little bit, I think, but
a little. No worries, though.
Right. American brewers are creative. I always tell people that in England, beer is a social phenomenon because you go to the pub and you talk to your friends. And in Germany, it's kind of a religious phenomenon because it's all about seasonal. In Belgium, it's a gastronomic phenomenon. This is what Michael Jackson used to say as well, because Belgian beers are like wine and they go so well with food. But I think in America, in the United States, it's kind of a creative phenomenon. It's a artistic monster, and American brewers like to put their own spin on everything. And I don't mind that at all. But when I see people who say, I only drink hazy, juicy IPAs because I love them and I like sweet, 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 that's not really what an IPA was meant to be. IPAs are supposed to showcase hops and hop bitterness. And oh my God, I miss a good bitter IPA. I want to see bitterness come back. A bitterness is an acquired taste, but there are so many beers that are meant to showcase bitterness. And when I see someone say, oh, I only like hazy, juicy IPAs, but I'll say, have you tried a Doppelbock? No, but I probably won't like them. And if you tried an English bitter, no, but I probably won't like it because I don't like bitter beer. Well, English bitters aren't bitter; they're malty. It's kind of a misnomer. Yeah. And I hate for people to let their childhood taste buds change craft beer. I don't want my beer to taste like candy bars and breakfast cereal.
Fruity Pebbles.
If I'm going to drink if I want a breakfast cereal, I'm gonna have a breakfast cereal. I want my beer to taste like beer, and I want classic styles not to go away because that's where craft beer came from. It's the roots, and it's what I love. But I drink a hazy IPA. I'll drink a chocolate donut beer. I was in New Orleans and went to this place, and they had a beer called Vending Machine Imperial Stout. Ooh. And it was honestly called Vending Machine Stout because everything they could find in a vending machine, they put in the stout. They put in crackers, cheese, crackers, pretzels, candy bars, Cheez-Its. And it was not my favorite.
That's like a garbage plate.
Paul, yes, let's hear it for Hoppy Beers, Paul.
It's like
Paul and his wife are going on every trip I ever do from now on. They've promised me as long as they live, they will never miss a trip. And there's my friend Pete, who always misspells my name.
On purpose.
I took Pete to Germany once, and the lady from the brewery came out and she said, "Oh, you're and she saw my email where my name was Owen. My middle initial is C. Ran it together on the email, so she came out and called me Ovink, and so Pete from that point has called me Ovink.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
look at this. Everybody's coming out.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the extra stout bitter because that's actually a style I really like, and it's never it's not bitter. I agree, it's all malt
and it's not bitter.
Really good.
I think it was bitter.
But you know what?
I think it was bitter relatively when the style started. Is that the history of it, Owen?
People were drinking porters and mild ales in London in the 20s and 30s and 40s. And then when bitters came out, they wanted to have a golden amber colored beer with more hops and more clean crispness. And people weren't used to it. And so they went, ooh, that's kind of bitter. And so they started naming them bitters. And you had a light bitter called an ordinary bitter, and you had a medium bitter called the best bitter because everyone thought it was the best. And then you had a strong bitter called the strong bitter, or the ESB extra strong bitter. Mm-hmm. But none of them are very bitter nowadays. People drink them and go, wow, it tastes like caramel and toffee and some vanilla and wood resins and things like that from the hops. And they're fantastic beers.
Well, Doug didn't ask me, but I'm going to answer.
Okay.
ESB is the one I would like to see more. And I know a bunch of beer fans, or beer fans who say who agree with me, which is ESB is an underbrewed style, and we need to see more of it. What thoughts?
Yeah. I'd like to see more bitters. I'd like to see people here making English miles. An English dark mild is 4% alcohol, and it's in England that kids consider it an old man's beer, But if you have a really good one, it's so elegant and so beautiful and it's not going to hit you over the head, but you can just taste all these different things in a nice English dark mild, and you can drink 20-ounce pints of it all day long, and you're good.
I was going to say that.
So
that's a pub beer.
Yeah. Good stuff. I could go on and on and on about it. Lambics have been a success story. I was preaching about Belgian lambics back in the 80s and 90s when people would take a sip and spit it across the room and go, oh my God, what is wrong with you? How do you drink this? And now you can't keep them on the shelves anymore because a lambic is a is a
Real
sour,
right.
acidic beer, a real lambic that's not sweetened and not pasteurized. Those things are really great sour beers. Unlike, and they have a lot of complexity, unlike kettle souring, which if somebody in America wants to make a sour beer, they'll put the wort in the boil kettle and throw in lactobacillus, yogurt bacteria, and let it sour overnight, and then come in the next morning and boil it to kill the bacteria. They don't want that in the brewery, and it's going to give you a crisp sourness from the lactic acid, but it's not going to be a complex beer. And so far, that's what a lot of young people are only experienced with. They're just these Jolly Rancher sweet tart, sour kettle soured beers that kind of lack complexity.
Mm-hmm. And and I don't want to keep you on for another hour, but the whole term sour is another.
Mm-hmm.
We could literally deep dive on that one for like an hour. Like what is a sour beer? And again, lambics are different than sours, and people don't have any idea. I still really, I have more than I would say your average person, but I still get caught up in saying sours and yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the term sours because it's like talking about vehicles in a parking lot and just saying, "Ooh, I like front-wheel drive vehicles." It doesn't mean anything. You're talking about a truck or a car or a van or what? I mean, sour beers are, lambics, Berliner Weiss, Gozas, fruit beers. And you've got to narrow it down and talk about beer styles. I love talking about and learning about beer styles. That's why I'm doing these posts every day about classic beer styles. And to use a meaningless term like sours is just not a good idea. Be specific and let people know exactly what you're talking about and what you like.
So we got a couple.
And if you ever go to Belgium to a lambic brewery and you use the word sours, they will ask you to leave. They'll ask you to get out because they don't. Their beers to them are religious experience. They're complex.
Right.
They're a work of love and passion and art, and they're not supposed to be sour. Sour acidity is one aspect of them, and that's kind of an insult. So don't ever use that term in Belgium.
So we got it right. So we got a couple loves of ESB here.
Yeah. There's Mary again. Yeah.
Brewers.
We have a brewery in Atlanta.
ESBs, man.
We have a brewery in Atlanta called Arches, and the brewer there, Justin Ramirez, just made an ESB that won first place at the Cask Festival, and my goodness, it was good. He is on it.
Man, and here's someone that you changed your life, beer wise.
Yes, that's Joy and Paul. Yeah, First time I took them to Belgium, they were a little skeptical about lambics, but now they love them dearly, and they don't miss a chance to go back with me.
Yeah, lambics are kind of hard to grab around here, though. I mean, you see some of the framboise, and those are usually actually really sweet. So
yeah. It has to say Oude on it, O-U-D-E or O-U-D. If it's a lambic that says Oude or Oude, you know that's a sour, not sour, but it's a tart, complex lambic the way they used to be. But if you see the new lambics, like Lindemann's Framboise, it starts out as a really good lambic, and the base beer style that he makes, the Cuvée Ronnée, is fantastic. But that Lindemann's Framboise is just it's pasteurized and got so much sugar in there. Mm-hmm. It tastes like dessert. So it's all you can really taste is the sugar and the fruit.
Mm-hmm. So Doug, I have one last question for Owen. Do you have one last question?
No, I'm good. Owen, I've been really appreciative of you being patient with me and my goofy questions.
Me too.
No problem.
So Owen, are you willing to share that story that me and you talked about in pre-production today, even before Doug was around, about the was it a brewer that called you up, or was it they wanted you to help them with a tasting?
Oh yeah, well, people are trying to be creative in this time of quarantine, which is driving a lot of people crazy. So we have a local gastropub in I live in Watkinsville, which is just outside Athens, And we're lucky to have a local gastropub called Chops and Hops. And he called me this morning saying, hey, I got a great idea. We're going to do a beer dinner to go. So he and I talked. We came up with 4 menu items that go really well with beer. And then I got on the phone with one of my favorite distributors in town, and we picked out 4 beers, 1 beer to go with each course. And so you're going to call them up and pay with a credit card, and then drive up with your trunk opener or whatever, and they'll come out and they'll give them your name, and they'll come out and put the beer and the food in your car, and you drive home and you have a beer dinner at home. And my wife and I, she's the beer wench. She and I are gonna do a little YouTube video that when people sit down with the food, they'll talk about each of the beers and the food pairings, and I think that's a good idea, and it should be really fun. He's going to start next week with only 24 of them, but if it goes really well, he might bump it up the week after that. He wants to do 1 a week for 3 or 4 weeks, see how it goes.
I think that's an awesome idea.
That shows. I love that. I love you told me that story, because that shows the resiliency of people, of Americans, and all that. This is what we want to see. We want to see our small businesses survive, just like you, Owen. This is part of the reason why I'm doing this during this quarantine, is to project and push out. And as our friend Aloe says, we're going to drink the story, because we need to support all of our breweries, all of our beer people in this time where everything is scarce. And I don't know, when you told me that story, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, people aren't going to be stopped doing, because that would just be a normal, that would be something that you and the lady would go out and, have a dinner and, be around people. And, since we can't do that, we can still have some of the things. As I tell my family, in a pandemic, less is more. We should appreciate all we have, even if it's less than what we normally have.
It's very true. I like that. Good saying.
So anyway, on that note, Owen, thank you for coming on. As every guest that we have on during this time, I really would love to invite you back after everything goes through, after we get out of this, and you can tell us about, how you're rescheduling, what you're rescheduling when everything's going on. Because I know everybody's ready to get back to work, and I am, but I'm also ready to see this leave our society and our country and the world. So I'm willing to do whatever I'm going to do, whatever we need to do. And part of it is sitting in my basement and talking to beer people. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Very good. Well, thanks for having me on. It's great to see you guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Owen.
Thanks, Owen. Again, I hope to have you back in the fall so we can talk about everything that you're doing and how you're ramping back up. So take care and stay safe. And I hope to have the beer wench on. Tell her she's on my radar. I'm going to be hunting her soon. I want to schedule her.
She's ready, but you're going to need an hour and a half.
Oh, that's no problem for us.
Right. Cheers, Owen. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
So, man, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Could have gone for 2 hours, dude. That could have gone for 2 hours. That guy's got brain for beer I'd love to pick all day long.
Yeah, and I don't know. He's just another person that I have to show where Owen and I met, and just because it's just a great beer fest. This is where Owen and I met last 3 years ago in Milwaukee, Beer Now conference. Unfortunately, if everything breaks and we can go out in August and go back to quote normal life, whatever that's going to be. Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be there. I'll be at Fresh Fest, but this is one that every year I look for. I make sure I get to, because if not, I would not know people like Owen and Paige, and we can go down the list. Dan Boubian, Rick Dador. I mean, it's just
all of them.
Rita. I mean, everything. So without my peeps, man, I wouldn't have Jeremy and Joel Gratzik, and it's just amazing, all the people that we meet and that I've introduced to you and hopefully my friends. So I love it. It's great. It's a great way to get past through the pandemic, ain't it, Joe?
Yeah. I really appreciate you doing this show too, because it's a different style thing than what we do on Fridays, and I'm really appreciative of that, because I could drink. That's never a problem. But having people that actually have stuff to inform us about, and
we can drink,
spotlighting folks who, hey, we're all have our things we're trying to get through with this pandemic, and getting them to voice what they're doing and how they're going through it is tremendous, and I'm glad you're doing it.
And we got a bunch more, man, coming. I'll talk to you on the side about that, but we absolutely have a bunch of more Meet My Friends. I haven't even hit up half of my friends or my people that I meet at these events. So we're going to be good, man, through the pandemic, and hopefully we can keep this going. Like I said, we need to bring them back to see what's going on once it's over and start, getting this stuff back to where we're at. So, Doug, I will see you on Friday.
Yeah.
Let's see.
You'll see me later, but yeah, on the other thing.
So in a little bit here, this is live, but in a couple hours, I'll be joining Rajay Beer Ventures on YouTube, and he's having a National Beer Day thingy. So that's going to be fun. But on Friday, we'll have Rajay on, and he's in my opinion, he's one of the best people, like, to describe a beer. Like, the way he describes a beer, he just puts you in that experience. I think the last time he was talking about, like, this beer, like, puts you on the beach. And wind is blowing. And, like, he's just, I don't know, he's just great. So it's going to be fun. And then later tonight, if you're live watching, we're going to have one of our, if you go to Daddy Porter's Beer Group, let's see here. If you go to this, we have virtual toasts, and we're doing those until the pandemic ends. We're going to do them past, I've decided. But maybe not as frequent, but we should all get together and have a beer when we can. So with that being said, Doug, any last notes?
No, man, it's been great. Owen's a super interesting guy. We definitely got to have him on again because, he's just got a wealth of knowledge. And I like him promoting the older style beers. I mean, we get a little bit crazy sometimes with some of the – and I'm as guilty as anybody because I see something weird and I want to try it just because it's weird. So, but having like a good classic style done really well, there's not a substitute for that.
And I like Owen's approach, and that's why I wanted him to explain it. Like, he, again, because this is where we disagree a little bit, but he's right though, where like some of these Fruity Pebble beers are really pushing out like ESBs and stuff like that, and that's where I completely agree with him. I can't. It's a hard point to argue, even though I do want to try that Fruity Pebbles beer.
Yeah, but that's the thing is you're trying it, and you'll have one, and that'll be it. Because I tried that. That thing was sickeningly sweet, but it was interesting. But if I'm going to have, like I said, if you're going to drink an ESB, you can drink that all day. You don't need to it's a style that just goes down smooth. But there's a lot of those kind of style of beers. Box is the same way. Like I agree with them. Box and Doppelbox are they're not made enough.
No, they're not. And on that note, Doug, I'll see you Friday.
You got it, man.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.
Doom, 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 doom.